back to the Larry Kudlow Show.
Bill Beach, an old friend of mine, a great economist, former commissioner at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. He is now senior economics fellow at the Economic Policy Innovation Center. I get their stuff. And he's a Coolidge fellow at the Calvin Coolidge Presidential Foundation, Amity Schlase's shop. Bill Beach, welcome. I want to get
Larry,
to...
good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, my friend. I want to get to the boring subject of the debt limit in a moment. But let me just ask you this. As a former BLS commissioner, do you have is there a short, simple explanation for the 813,000 jobs were taken out, erased by revisions, and I think it was the Philadelphia Fed just said we're going to get the second quarter another 500,000. What's going on there, Bill?
Yeah, well, I mean, the short answer is read an article that I wrote on it, and that's, you get the whole story there. But I can just tell you right off, Larry, I think that BLS is not doing a good enough job estimating the number of firms that either go out of business when the recessions are occurring, the economy slowing down, or come into business during boom periods. And that's the real source of it. I know that's kind of technical, but we have to do that because we don't know within the period from March to March what firms are coming in and what firms are dying. And I think it's that estimate that's going on. I don't think it's the underlying methodology, which is pretty good for estimating the monthly amounts. We do have firms that don't report like they should, and so there are revisions every month, but that's the normal sort of thing. So
you're saying the birth-death ratio?
That's it.
That's
the
at fault?
birth-death model.
Yeah.
If that's the one.
Huh.
Right. Yeah.
So, it looks like the jobs market is weaker than maybe people thought, no?
Absolutely. And I think that is now well known over the course of the period from, say, March of 23 through March of 24, which is the reference period that we're talking about. The market was a lot weaker, and job growth was not as strong. It was 800,000 is a big number. That's a big revision, and subsequent numbers came in for the months after March of 24, and they were revised downward, or they were weaker than a lot of the models expected. So, so I think what we saw was the consequences of really rapid inflation. We saw some regulatory burden, which was slowing the economy. Productivity was not picking up where it should be. And all of that eventually came back through these revised jobs numbers. So, again, I think BLS is doing okay, except that some of the ways that they estimate these firms coming in and firms leaving the market is not as good as it should be.
So now on to the debt ceiling. So
yes, sir.
You're going to disagree with me, but we're pals, so it doesn't matter. Look, to me, the debt ceiling. First of all, it does not reduce deficits, it does not reduce spending, and it does not reduce debt. It just doesn't do anything, and so I don't know why we have it. All it does, and I agree with Trump on this. He called it quicksand. It gives Democrats who never want to cut spending. Republicans, by the way, are not a hell of a lot better. Believe me. Right. This is the source of some of the unrest in the GOP. But the point is, Democrats love to hit the debt ceiling and then start in with the politics of government shutdown and blame Republicans. I think the whole exercise is not, why do we need a debt ceiling?
Well, right now it's required by law.
So
I think we got to figure out a way to kind of get past a constitutional provision that says that the House and Senate need to approve new debt, and then move on from there. And we could operate without a debt ceiling if we had better control of our spending. Spending is running at 21%. It's going to be up to 24%. That's way above where it should be. Mm-hmm. Revenues are at 17% of GDP. That's about where they have always been. So the problem is a spending problem. And I think as long as we have the debt ceiling, it occasionally forces us to focus on the ridiculous levels of our spending and make some choices. Well, we're not making choices right now. I'll tell you one thing, Larry, I'd like to see is a better budget process. I'd like to see Congress pass budgets instead of these CRs and omnis. I just think that that's part of the problem too.
Well, yeah, because they violate regular order in the budget. They always,
Absolutely.
They campaign on it, but they don't do it. So it all piles up at the end, and it's a big bloody mess. The thing is, I'd rather see a spending limit than a debt limit.
Okay.
All right. If you want to say spending a GDP should run it, I think the 50-year average is 20% or 21%. I know you're right about revenues at 17% of GDP, but the problem is, heck, this Congress, not the 119th, but the 118th Congress that just ended, okay, Republicans broke the pay-go provisions. For people who don't understand the language here, the pay-go means spending cuts that were put into place by Kevin McCarthy in a deal he made with Biden back in 2023. They've just ignored them. And there was a revolt. Mike Johnson, whom I like, but nonetheless, his first CR deal, which went up in flames, would have violated the pay-go. In other words, if you're going to increase spending in one spot, you have to decrease spending in another spot. But they don't do that anymore, Bill Beach.
That's absolutely right, Larry. They don't do that anymore. And now what we're facing is probably as early as June, more than likely in July, we'll hit what's called the X date, which is the date at which we are completely out of money. I mean, we've got no more borrowing authority. That's where we are right now. We're in a debt limit because we restated it on January 2nd. And now what we're doing is we're spending down the cash balances, and we'll be totally out of money, by my estimates, somewhere between June and July.
I can't wait. I'm for it. Let's have no more money. If they don't have any money, they can't spend.
That's right.
Look, they'll pay the interest. They'll pay the interest on the bonds, and Social Security, at least for the next few years, is self-financing. Okay, I don't care about the rest of it. I've been through. Look, in the Trump years, you were in the Trump administration.
Yes, sir.
We had, 4 or 5 weeks of a government shutdown?
We had a good one.
Did anyone miss us? Did they miss anybody? I mean, first of all, I had to work. I wasn't getting paid, but I had to work.
Me too.
I mean, what the heck? I just think, get rid of it. It's a fiction.
Yeah. Well, I do think that's the reason why the debt limit may serve the public interest here, because it does create these crises. Now, you're right. Every party plays against it and has their own arguments, but the public can now see, okay, fine, that's the problem. Why don't you just cut spending? Why don't you just reform this program? There are only 10 programs that have 66% of all the spending.
Bill Beach, thank you, buddy. We'll talk some more about this over time. Bill Beach of the Coolidge Foundation. Dan Clifton up next.